All right, joining me live now from Queensland's Parliament House is Queensland Deputy Opposition Leader and Shadow Treasurer Tim Mander. Mr Mander, thank you so much for joining us on Qld tonight. What do you make of today's trad budget?
Well, Peter, it's a traditional state Labor budget. There are higher taxes, there's more debt, there's less jobs and there's less infrastructure. This is an irresponsible budget and a budget where the Treasurer has given up on debt. In fact, it's spiralling out of control.
Well, you'd have to argue, Tim Mander, that this is a budget wrapped in a high-vis vest because there's this huge reliance on resources royalties. In fact, we've got the gas royalties going up from 10 to 12.5%, which is about an $800 million extra taxation revenue. Ian Macfarlane from the Resources Council is livid, saying you cannot trust what these guys are saying because last week they basically ruled out any extra slug for the resources sector.
That's exactly right, Peter. Under this government now, there's been 7 new or increased taxes over the past 4 years. That is going to take around about $3.4 billion out of business, which means that affects confidence, which affects investment, which affects jobs. So this government, when it runs out of money, it goes for the money of taxpayers and take it out of their pockets. It's simply not good enough, and it's a total con job as well, Peter. They talk about extra jobs, but over the estimates of this budget, there'll be 26,000 fewer jobs than what they forecast last year. They talk about extra infrastructure, but again, compared to last year, there's $23 million that will be spent less than last year. It is a total con job.
All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room here, Tim, and that is the word debt. Now, we know that debt has soared under this government and it's headed for $83 billion in 2022, but it's also projected to be much higher than that by 2025. Now, the Labor Party seem to have this reluctance to address the issue, but I don't see much sort of addressing of the issue from you guys either. What will you do to stabilise and reduce debt in this state?
Well, that's the very first thing that we'll do, Peter, is that we will have an intention to stabilise the debt. Jackie Trad has given up on the debt, and that's why it's spiralling out of control. She doesn't make any apologies for that, and they have no debt repayment plan whatsoever. So the first thing that we will do is stabilise that debt, and we will have a repayment plan. And one of the things that we'll do is we'll stop the waste that's taken place. We've already identified $1 billion worth of waste that's happened in the term of the Palaszczuk government. Over $500 million, $500 million in IT blowouts, $100 million in bringing 2 prisons back under public control, $320,000 to bring out the former Vice President, Al Gore, $500,000 to change the name of Lady Salento Hospital. It's that type of waste that we have to stop, and we will.
All right, just finally now, payroll tax is down, but property tax for those with properties over $5 million, the land tax has actually gone up quite appreciably. It's being described as an attack on the big end of town. How do you see that?
Well, I agree with that, but it's not the big end of town. These taxes affect everyday Queenslanders. These taxes will affect people when they go to the dump to dump their household rubbish. These taxes will affect small business owners when they rent their properties. This government takes with one hand and gives with another. And the Queenslanders aren't silly. They won't be sucked in by this. And this is bad news, not just for business, but for all Queenslanders, because business has to pass on these costs to their consumers and their clients.
All right, Tim Mander, Opposition Treasury spokesman, really appreciate your time down there at Parliament House tonight. Thank you so much.